This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
Good. There we go. I've been regularly attending a women's CoDA group for 4 years now. I was referred to CoDA by a therapist in 2017. It took me 6 months to get myself to that meeting. But I took the group's encouragement to keep coming back and made a commitment to myself to show up every week. I came to CoDA broken, exhausted, and full of anxiety. My 17-year marriage was broken and ending, and I was really angry. I have faith in God. That's always sustained me, and I have a church family, but this divorce thing was never in my vocabulary or my mindset. I was ashamed of this failure. I did till death do you part, not divorce. I'd been previously married for 27 years. We had 2 sons together. And then in 1999, I was widowed at age 46. I was alone. My kids were grown. After the death of my husband, I sought out help. God sent me to 2 women, one recently widowed with young children who had started a widow's support ministry in her home, and the other woman, a hospice RN, who was starting a nonprofit organization called New Hope Grief Support Community. They were both lifelines sent by God to me, and they are my dear friends still today. I eventually received training as a grief support group facilitator after participating as a member in grief support group and finding some healing and hope and renewed purpose in life. An unexpected compassion ministry began for me in 2000, and it hasn't stopped yet. The world of grief support is unique, and I still feel called to continue this special mission of God to comfort the brokenhearted, teach them and others about the grief process, and continue growing in the process. And yes, I have healed from the difficult experiences and great loss inflicted by death and divorce. I've grown, and I'm content and blessed today. It's my privilege to share some of what I've learned in grief support and self-care throughout the past 22 years. My goal is to do God's will, and I hope and pray this workshop will assist you in your own healing as we positively impact the lives of others in this world as well. The tools that we'll be discussing, I've got handouts. So the slideshow that Carol will be sharing some handouts that can be printed out so you can use it. It's a lot of information. I always like to give more information than not because it's an unusual setting to get go to like a seminar or a grief support group. Usually the grief support groups that we do are 8 weeks long. And so this is a condensed 8 weeks into an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half or so. So I hope you don't get overwhelmed. If you all get overwhelmed, just raise your hand and I'll stop and we'll talk. But so we're going to discuss the 12 steps, but primarily steps 1, 2, and 3, because it relates to our powerlessness and it relates to our relationship with a higher power, with God. And the grief journey draws on all of that. Also, a great resource is the In This Moment daily meditation book, the 12 Promises, and I have a resource called The God Can. So to the first slide we've got here, this is an overview of grief and mourning. Grief and mourning and a variety of feelings are normal reactions that the grieving person will experience following the death of a loved one or any significant loss. So I want to clarify, this doesn't just relate to the death of a loved one, but there are many, many losses: the loss of relationship, divorce, I ended up, after my husband died, a year later, selling my business of 22 years. And I had a long extended clientele base, a family clientele base. And in selling my salon, I also lost all of those longtime relationships for the most part. Moving, even changing churches, broken relationships, loss of health, all of these kinds of things are reflected in the grief process. So know that if you haven't lost somebody specifically, or it's been a long time, that all of this same process to different degrees will be the same. So the grieving person will experience some of these emotional reactions, not necessarily all of them, and not in any particular order. And it's referencing on the slide the common emotional reactions. Grieving persons will revisit the emotional reactions to their loss many times during the acute phase of their loss. Within the first few years after the death of their loved one, acute raw grief endures for 1 to 3 years or a bit longer, depending on the type of the loss. And there's complicated grief. So there's the loss of a sudden death, a suicide, a tragic accident. Some things are public losses that entail media, entail court, a court case and stuff. So those are going to be much more longer extended and needing much more support in that process. One never gets over the death of a loved one, but can get through it with the help of grief support groups and other support resources. In the event that a person feels stuck or prolonged in their grief, the help of professional counseling must be sought. This is where people can get stuck and become very depressed and despairing, losing hope to the point of being suicidal. And so these are kind of the warning signs of, always ask for help. Our higher power didn't mean for us to live alone on the planet. The grieving persons need to know and rehearse often. Number one, everything you feel and experience in your grieving is normal. Number two, you're not going crazy. And number three, you have permission to grieve. So on the slide, we share it has the 4 tasks of mourning. So the first task, that's still the same slide, Carol. It's still the same slide. Number one is accept the reality of the loss. So the sense of when you can't believe this happened, those kinds of thoughts, and you keep expecting, to get a phone call from the person or see the person, they come home and that doesn't happen. It takes, I would say, a good year to get through that full year of really having a grasp on that your life is totally changed and you accept it. Because there's lots of ways people can avoid grief and avoid the reality. We can think, oh, well, they're just on a vacation. Maybe it was somebody who traveled a lot, and so they were gone a lot. And so we can use our imagination in an unhealthy way that can keep us stuck. So the second task is to work through the pain and work through and experience the pain. Again, all of these, like referenced in beforehand, these can take the first few years to get over a significant loss, or get through it. I'm sorry, not over it. The third one is to adjust to an environment in which your loved one is gone, or like with my business, I didn't get up to go to my salon to cut hair for people. So all of that took a long time it was adjusting every day, every moment of the day, with all of these changes. And the fourth one is finding a new normal that we call our new normal, because life will never be what it was. It'll never return. Everything's different. And this is finding an enduring connection with your loved one in the midst of embarking on a new life. And another way of describing this is where we cherish our fond memories and we're sharing them. And there's many ways to memorialize our loved ones and remember them, because we don't want people to forget them. And we don't want to forget them. And so, but it's where the intense, acute pain and grief and the strong emotions start easing, and we start finding new purpose and meaning. We have some healing and some recovery in processing the loss. So the strong emotions are shock, sadness, depression and loneliness, fear and panic. And they have that together because we live in life with a lot of anxiety and stress. The anxiety really comes from fears. So it goes together. We have fear, and then our minds start taking off and creating all kinds of imaginative things, or we don't know what the future is. And so we're totally out of control. So I remember feeling tremendously panicked, and sometimes it will just sweep over you. You don't think you're fine, and then you'll have in grief waves of grief that kind of come in, sometimes like a tsunami. And so just consider the ocean and how the ocean comes in and crashes on the shore, and then it resides. So the grief journey is it's like a roller coaster ride, riding the waves of the ocean. And we have guilt. We deal with anger, apathy, and then adjustment. Okay, on to the next slide. I don't know if, Carol, the next slide, you can flip at all to read it. It's vertical, since that's how I was able to just scan it. But this is a simpler way of saying the 4 tasks of mourning. And we use it in youth ministry, in youth grief support for children. And it is a reality mountain, which is experiencing a fog of strange feelings. The valley of pain, where we have volcanoes of anger, rocks of guilt, the swamp of sadness, and the dark woods of fear. And then 3 is the hills of change, which we have big changes, little changes, and it's a long desert of grief. And that relates to adjusting to an environment in which our loved one is gone, or we've lost a job that's no longer there, a career, whatever you're dealing with. And then the 4th is springs of new normal, where we start healing and transitioning to where we start enjoying friends and having fun and feeling happy again and not feeling guilty about it. In the process of these strange feelings that are very strong and intense, at times we can feel guilty that we laughed, because we should just be sad all the time. And so we, see something or somebody says something and we laugh, or we go, have a good time. We can end up taking on unnecessary guilt that is just really, actually, we need that relief. So On to the next one. This is called the tangled ball of emotions. Like we call it the grief ball. And I probably can't read all of those words, but I'm going to show you this ball here. And it's like the inside of a baseball or tennis ball or whatever. There's all kinds of little ropes of string. But consider this, I have a really, really huge one that I loaned someone, so I don't have it right now, but it's really huge. So our grief when it first happens is very, very heavy. We feel like we're walking through glue and and the world has stopped, but we've stopped and we want everyone to know what happened. Then life keeps going on for others, and it's a very strange experience. But know that you're going to get through it. So this is a grief ball with representing all these different kinds of emotions. As we process our grief and give ourselves time, healing, and supportive, safe environments and people along our journey, our grief will eventually lessen, and life will be a little easier to deal with. And then as we continue further, it gets even smaller to where actually, you go back to work and you can actually function, get through the day without coming home totally exhausted. Your energy starts building and stuff. So know that eventually your grief will be manageable. You will have found healing and recovery to get back into life with new purpose, new meaning, new appreciation for life, and one another. So on to the next slide. We have, but I just want to repeat actually that with all of those emotions, I want you to remember those three things we talked about. Is everything you feel and experience in your grieving is normal. And even to the extreme, you're processing great pain because of a love relationship you had or something that was very precious to you in your life. And so just know that you're going to ride that. Just ride it out. Know that it'll end. And you have permission to grieve. So I want you to give yourself permission to grieve. It's normal, natural, and healthy. So the holistic grieving person, the healthy, holistic aspects of our life here, you're going to learn how to take care of you, which is a must in healthy recovery. Grief affects the entire person, involving all areas of our life, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and socially. So I want you to consider observing yourself to see how you're doing in all these different areas. Is there an area where you are neglecting yourself? And be aware of what you're allowing in your life at this difficult time. What are we listening to? Who are we listening to? If it's negative and not helpful, then stop it and set a boundary for yourself. Because in my loss, I had to not be around some people who, and a lot of the times it's family members where you feel like you should be close to them, but you're not, but everybody's grieving at the same time in their own way. So what used to be isn't, and all the family is trying to reorganize and figure out who the family is without this one person. In my experience, I didn't realize that I have 4 siblings. I didn't realize that my husband was the glue in my family. And once he was gone, all the old baggage and how we came from an alcoholic family, a violent alcoholic dad. And so we were all kind of being very protective of ourselves and defensive. And so it was really ugly. And they did not want to be there for me. They didn't know they should. They didn't know how. And I was got this training to share with them. And they just, it was like, I don't have time for this. This is your, and so know that you're going to experience stuff that will be like what I call unnecessary additional grief. People will say and do things that we will take really personally and really hard because of our depth of loss. And so we may react really strongly to something that previously we wouldn't have reacted that strongly or maybe at all. And so know that you need to limit who you're around, who's in your world, and what you're listening to. And find something healthy on this handout chart that you're going to do, that you're not doing now, and that you're going to do and add to your life, and schedule it, and then do it. Actually do what's in your schedule, so that you can be aware and take care of yourself better. Ask yourself what brings you joy, what ministers to your soul, and plan that and do it. What ministered to my soul every day to get up and stuff and all. I listen to music. I love instrumental music. I love worship music. And so I wake up to music every morning, and I put myself to sleep by that music as well. And so eventually, I'd wake up really in a painful place, but usually by the 3rd song, I would start to then be able to sing along with it, and it would lift my spirits. So having music in my life, to cut out the TV, no TV. It just was filled with more negative than anything positive. For me, I did that. The other thing I did is I owned a hair salon. Is I knew I wouldn't want to be cutting I knew I wouldn't want to be cutting anybody's hair. And so, and I worked with a lot of children. And so I didn't want to be going in and sharing the story over and over again as people want to know and all. So I gave myself permission to not go to work, and I didn't know for how long. And so I ended up, it was 7 months before I went back, and my manager said she was getting worn out and I needed to go back. But I let myself have that time because I knew I wouldn't be able to recover it back. And I wanted to come out healthy and restored. So I was able to do that. In the work environment, they pretty much give you 3 days to grieve and then back to work, and it's function at the same level that you were functioning at. They have that expectation. That's impossible. No one with a severe loss can do that. And so know that it's okay to share information with your employer, HR, your boss, that you can't do the volume of work that you could do before, and to give you a good amount of time, not a month, you might need 6 months. And maybe in a year, you can be back to what you were before. So know that you can take care of yourself in that way. I'm going to talk about what we need in grief. And I'm going to be asking you some questions in just a little bit. So hang on. Can you go, Carol, to the next slide? All right. So we need a lot of things in grief. And so if we're unaware of it, then it's just really helpful to have this map of where I am and where I'm going to go and what I'm going to need in the process. We need time. We need rest. We need security and hope, caring. We need goals, small pleasures. We need permission to backslide because grief is a roller coaster ride. And if we think we're going to go through the 4 tasks of mourning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if we're a type A personality and control freak, and we think, well, okay, I can have this down in like a month's time, to give himself a week to get each task done, or 6 months or a year. It doesn't work that way. So know that when you think you're doing good, and it's not a journey straight up. It's an up and down as the flow of life is. And so know that don't get afraid that you're sinking into depression that you won't be able to come out of. It's just you need more care. You may need more rest at that time. You may need more. I know I like sleep, and it wasn't a depression sleep. It was just my body and my brain. Your brain is constantly trying to figure out and fix what happened, what went wrong. And so our brains don't have any downtime to keep us an even level emotionally and physically and mentally and spiritually. And so know that not to be afraid, and it's okay. You will continue to heal. You're just having a difficult day, maybe a difficult week. And also we need self-acceptance. So a lot of these things I'm pointing out are all part of what's in the 12-step program in Codependence Anonymous as well. And so know that you'll see stuff here, you'll hear things here that relate to what we've been learning and growing in our walk in life through codependent recovery. So it's very helpful to accept and express your feelings as they happen. They will help you to learn about yourself and the grief process you're experiencing. Let yourself cry when it happens. There is healing in our tears, and crying reduces stress and tension. There's actually a chemical in our tears that God created in our tears, that when we shed them, and we do have a good cry, that feeling of afterwards, those are endorphins that were released through the crying process. And so they're healthy. They come from God. And I call them tears of love because, and that's why it hurts so much when we shed them, when we're crying the loss of someone or something in our life that's dear to us. So I suggest you let your love tears flow naturally. It's unhealthy to stuff our feelings inside, as that can make us sick in more ways than one. Another thing that's helpful is to help family and friends to be supportive of you by being honest and open about your needs and feelings. They may feel uncomfortable around you, and that's normal too. They want to help, but they don't know how. So talk about your loved one also you lost so that they will know it's okay for them to do so also. And try to put off any major decisions if you can during this acute time in your life, in your loss. Changes like changing jobs, selling a home, moving away, getting rid of all of your loved ones' things, belongings quickly, changing lifestyles, remarriage, all kinds of like major things. If they can be put off, it's helpful. Some decisions can't be put off. Some people are forced to move in, like a wife, a widow or widower may have to move in with their children or move in with a friend. They can't financially survive on their own at this time. So there are things we can't put off, but those that we can, we must until we're more stable emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and even spiritually. And then there's a ways to how to be a friend. The next slide on how to be a friend. Never assume that you cannot make a difference. The three most important things that we have to grieve, the three most important things we have to give each other are, number one, our time, number two, our individual attention, and number three, our love. And the least important is our advice. So along with these three important focuses of relationships, there's three other important things the grieving person needs. Number one is talking. They need to talk about their grief and loss. Number three is tears. They need to tears. Allow them to express their grief through their tears. Tears will eventually stop, and you won't die from crying. And just to give you an example, there was a time in my life where I felt I lost 7 family members all at once. It wasn't in an accident or a death, but it was relationally. And it was so painful. And I went to a counselor, and after that session, I never stopped crying. And I had to call my sons and call my one son on the phone and call my other one to come over. I didn't know what was going on, but I cried for 7 hours. It eventually stopped. I just let myself cry. I called my loved ones to let them know. I didn't go to the hospital. I maybe was in a position where I could have, but I couldn't get myself there. But I let myself, and I hydrated myself. So the thing with tears and in grief, you definitely need to have tissues with you, and you need to have water. So bring these things, keep these things with you. I keep them, I carry them. I still today carry water all the time, and tissues, because I never know when I'm going to run into a situation where I need them or somebody else needs them. But those are just normal things to carry around, because when we shed tears, we're releasing hydration as well, and we need to rehydrate ourselves. And so water makes a huge difference. And then need time. It takes a lot of time. and a person never gets over their grief, but they get through it. Out of what I have shared, I want to open it up. Out of what I have shared so far, and may have had access to these slide presentations earlier and printed them out. But I want to open it up to have you share what has touched you so far, where you're at right now, as far as briefly the loss that you are experiencing, how long it's been, and what is the hardest thing for you right now. So, I see a hand up.
Yes, is that me, Duende? I want to
Yes.
ask you, what happens when, like, you didn't get a chance to grieve a loss that may have happened when you were 11 or 20 or something like that, and you're a 50-year-old man? How do you handle a situation like that?
Okay. So, there's many ways to deal with that. And also as a child, you don't have that kind of information and support. Children are actually neglected a lot in the process because the adults are intensely processing their own. So you can write a letter. You can do some journaling about that person, how that person, what you remember of that person. There was a grandparent or something, or you can journal about them, and you can write a letter telling them of your memories of them and what you wished you could have said. A lot of what we is, like what we wish we could have done or said, what we didn't say, or maybe we did something that we want to apologize for or something. We can do this through God in writing, he spiritually do it as an act for that little 11-year-old boy that lost somebody dear to them. The other thing is there's a lot of things you can do in memorializing somebody. There's planting a tree. You can plant a tree in a park. You can have your own private ceremony. You can have have it be remembered with other loved ones and friends. You can. When my husband died, I live in Long Beach, and they were building the aquarium, and they were fundraising. So I bought a brick that's dedicated in memory of Bob Douglas. And so that I have a copy of it, and it's also at the aquarium, and that aquarium's been there now 21 years. So there's many ways to acknowledge your loved ones and keep their memory alive.
Thank you. And how do you know if your grief is complete in a situation like that? Is there any way I can know that? Well,
you would have very strong emotional reactions and feelings. You would you probably would shed tears maybe. But you probably, if you're talking about this person, who was it? Was it a grandparent or who?
It was my mother, my father, my grandmother, 3 people. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've written the letters, and I guess
okay.
Maybe my codependent mind is like, am I completed? Is it completed? Because it's all about completion with codependence.
Well, you're doing it here again, and you're talking about it. So sharing about the loss is all part of continuing the healing journey, and so if you're not feeling stuck emotionally, then you're fine. You're fine. But honoring them and remembering them, some people like in the holidays, they will still have a place setting for that, their special person that's not there anymore. That's just what ministers to them. So whatever ministers to you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Nima, you want to unmute? There you go.
Yeah, it's Nema.
Okay.
Thank you for this wonderful workshop. What has kind of struck out at me is this need for friendship or people who are willing to listen. And in my recent grieving process, it has been kind of hard finding someone who's willing to listen, because I've made outreach calls and it is a rare individual who can just call back and just be willing to hear me or be willing to hear me cry. And that's something that I've needed. So I'm kind of just wondering how you've dealt with being able to reach out to perhaps new people if the folks who are in my circle, are few and far between that are willing to hear or be emotionally available, which of course points to the fact that I probably need more emotionally available friends. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for that question. This is what grief support groups are tremendously helpful for. And so that's one avenue, because they're all dealing with a similar loss. And you learn a lot. It's just like going to a CoDA group. You learn through people sharing by listening and then sharing yourself. So I would suggest looking into some local support groups. There's church organizations that have, like, Grief Share is one of them. The one that I have, that I'm connected to, New Hope Grief Support Community in Long Beach, they have family camps, they have kids camps, and they work in the schools. The hospitals have support groups. And so that's there. I've been a part of a widow's ministry for 22 years now. That one group that started in her home, we are 22 years strong. We had an annual widows retreat for the last 17 years, which is awesome. And so seek and ask God to guide you to who is safe and who will listen. They are out there, but they're in the compassion ministries.
Are you still taking questions?
Oh, Beatrice?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just wondering if you could talk about codependence and grief. Like, my dad died last year, and I was able to get 3 months Family Medical Leave Act and go and spend it with my mother and help her through those early stages. And my sister lives there with her now. But I got a comment when I came back from my CoDA group, a person in my CoDA group, what did you do for 3 months? And I just took that on to mean that there was something codependent in how I had handled that situation. And there, like, maybe it's just I put it on myself, like, if you're a healthy CoDA person, you're going to get over grief faster, or you're not going to, 2 weeks would have taken care of it or something. You know what I mean? I'm just needing to hear that I can be devastated in my grief and for it to take a long time and to really be there for my family. And it doesn't mean that I'm codependent, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Which is why I'm doing this workshop. Because it can get confusing. So this is from a significant loss. So you lost your dad. You're grieving as a daughter. You don't know what it's like to grieve as a widow. Your mom's a widow. So, but we can be there for one another. but we can't, nobody else knows your individual relationship with your dad. So you honor yourself and your own healing by dealing with your own. At the same time, you can help your mom. It's on the side. Now, I so love that you went to be with your mom, your widow, because I will always be a widow. I remarried, but I will always be Bob's widow. And so, like, there's a widow's ministry at my church. So there may be one in the community that you can connect her with. Connect her, find out a grief support in her community. Try to find some of the other support systems, because you can't take the pain from her and you can't make it better, and it's not going to take long. It's not, a healthy codependent is not going to get through the grief process, because there's 4 steps here to go through. And we talked about how it takes a few years to process all of this. The first year, everyone is going through, you're going through every day and every anniversary, every holiday, every birthday without that person. So you get through that whole first year and you have all the business of loss, with the financial and the legal stuff and all that adjusting. And so there's a whole lot of business work that goes on that distracts you from dealing with all of the pain. So know that when you get to that second year, you're going, I made it through I made it through the first year. Oh my gosh. Now I'm in the second year, and you've done with a lot of the distractions that keep you from dealing with the loss. You're going to go through, you're going to revisit it on a different level, on a deeper level. So just know that this is a spiritual journey. It's a healthy journey. When I came out of the loss of my husband, in the process, I came out with 2 things that are important in life: my relationship with God and my relationship with others. Everything else is fluff. Everything else is extra stuff that's really not important. And so I've hung on to that 22 years later. And so I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Okay. Carol, I don't know who else was like next, so.
I'd like to weigh in.
Okay.
I would just like to offer testimony to the great handouts that you put up there, because I did not do nearly all of those things that you recommend and other grief experts recommend that you do. I felt that I was strong enough to withstand the death of my first wife nearly 8 years ago, and found out that I was wrong. And then I ran into deep depression, and the road back was very long and arduous, because I had to do all of the things that are recommended much later. And to me, that is, I did them all. And to a great extent, that's a good demonstration of a pound of prevention. I mean, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. It's much difficult if you postpone the grieving process and then have to deal with the depression that comes later. So I really valued what you had to offer us today, and I hope others did. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Carol, were you going to say something about?
Yes, if you could use the raised hand feature, that would be helpful. There's a Lisa B. Not Lisa, sorry, I changed screen. Julia is next on there. It helps with a round robin, people know who's next.
Yes, thank you, Julia, codependent. I'm really grateful for the topic you raised today because I came to codependency because of my loss, and I never was talking about it before since then. I'm very scared to talk about it because with my it's very hard for me to find support because my loss is not considered as important because I'm grieving about my cat, and I'm very often describe it as it is lost as a child for me, but no one really consider it as important because I guess we had very special relationship in this sense. And 5 months has passed already since then, and I find myself in depression, and I can't work, I can't basically do anything, and most important, I can't talk to anyone about it because no one actually listened to me. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you for this workshop.
So, Julia, I appreciate you bringing that loss up. It is important, and you shared it just now with a whole lot of people. And so know that our hearts are with you in your loss. Our pets are family members. They've been in our life a long time. They have comforted us. There are big major comforters, right? And I don't have a pet. I have grandpuppies though. I don't have grandchildren. So I call them my grandpuppies. And I just had them here for a week with me, and they left last night. And so, just to let you know that when I did a grief group one time, and the ones we do were specific to the loss of a loved one, but the couple came and they had a family member who died, I think a sibling. And, but in the grief group, all they talked about was their pet that had died recently, their dog. And I learned the powerful impact of the loss of a pet. And so I learned to appreciate people's, pets and their relationship and their loss of them at a much, much deeper level. It's the same. You're going through the same process, and it be just as deep as your love for that pet was. So that's why it's so impactful to you, because you had a great love for that animal. And so you can honor that animal, and I'd say talk about your animal as much as you want. And you can call me, we could text, you can share all the funny things and things you went through with your animal. Okay, Julia?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. You just got to take care of yourself in the process. So, Juan.
Hi, Genevieve. Thank you so much for the comprehensive workshop. I just had a kind of a piggyback question on writing a letter, about your loved one. What do you suggest doing with that letter after you've completed it?
Okay. So, you can always mail it to the post office and direct it to heaven, to your loved one. You can actually mail it. They're used to those kinds of and so the other is you can do a little ceremony saying goodbye for them here on the planet with you. They're always in your heart. They're in your memories. So you can another thing that is done at one of the family camps is writing a letter and putting it in I think they had, how did it go? It was in some kind of little, they attached the letter somehow to a balloon, and they had a balloon ceremony and let it go up to the heavens. That's really beautiful. You could put it in the ocean.
Sorry, Genevieve. I'm sorry.
You could put it in the ocean, drop it out to sea. Off to the pier, there's, so think about maybe what was special to that person, a special place even. You could burn it. It just depends on your imagination and how your heart guides you. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Anna?
I have a question through the chat after Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm codependent. I'm so grateful for this topic, and especially the part where you had the feelings wall and had the denial at the center of it, because as a codependent, of course, denial and avoidance are my major patterns, and it applies to grief as well. So I've been postponing and denying my grief for so many years now, and I'm finding that it doesn't go away. I have to face it at some point. I also appreciated when you mentioned how a person can be the glue to the family and how the family can disintegrate after the loss. So it becomes a compounded loss. I can relate to that as well. And the feeling of fear of feeling my feelings, like I'm have not fully given myself the permission to feel the full weight of sadness. So I'm actually really grateful for this presentation. In the beginning, you mentioned that this is a condensed form of an 8-week workshop. I am really interested in joining that workshop. I'd appreciate more information on that. Thank you.
Okay. Carol, did you say something before Anna? How much time do we have left?
We have till 4:45, and okay. I have a question from the chat.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead with the chat then.
Okay, just need to find it again. Okay, so this person's husband, who wants to remain anonymous, and her husband. So my husband has some strokes, and some of his personality and ability to control emotions and some cognitive abilities are gone. I'm experiencing a loss of relationship and a loss of some of him, but some of him is still there. How do you grieve that at the same time deal with embracing the life we do have? Yes, that's the question.
Beautiful question. So there is the loss of health in many different forms. And even in long-term relationships, love relationships, marriage, our abilities when we were younger lessen. But we don't think that, we don't know that. And then all of a sudden one day we're realizing it's happening, or it's happened to one of us. And so it sounds also like some of the health condition has actually diminished the ability, like the adult level communication level. So it might just be a simpler relationship, making it more simple in communication and caring and showing love in different ways than what we used to. So, and then also anticipatory grief, that reminds me of in your question, where in relationship as we're getting older or whatever, where there's an illness, where you're anticipating the permanent loss of somebody through death, or the fear of it. And so that's actually processing the same 4 tasks of mourning and all of the emotions. But also when the loss actually happens in death, you're going to go through it again. So the assumption that, well, I've already grieved them, is a nice idea, but it doesn't play out that way. And so in the eventual death of somebody, you're going to go through it again and on a deeper level, And so, does that help? Did I miss something? Oh, okay. Can't get a reply back yet because she's on chat. Okay. So that's what God gave me to share.
That was good. It's okay.
Okay. Cecilia?
Hi, yes. I have a question. I lost my grandma 3 weeks ago, and I haven't realized how much it had affected me up until the point where one of my managers called me and kind of put me on the spot for the many mistakes that I have been making over the past 3 weeks. I have been lost and sad and really not paying attention, and so it has become a problem in my performance. And so he was actually very nice, and he says, like, listen, I know that there are a lot of mistakes happening lately, but I'm very worried about you, and I want to make sure that you're doing okay. And talking to my manager separately, I asked her, like, what could be some options to help, and she's like, do you want to take a leave of absence? And to me, it was like, if I can afford to have paid leave of absence for 2 or 3 weeks, I think that's the maximum I can take. I don't know what I will be doing with myself. Like, what do I spend 2 weeks home alone watching TV? Like, what?
No.
What is the plan there? And like, I'm kind of stuck and scared because, like, I don't know, like, would being isolated make it even worse than staying busy? So I don't know if you have any advice, please.
Well, I think it's wonderful you have a sensitive boss and a manager willing to and offering to work with you with different options. So tell them thank you from me for that.
I will.
I would suggest looking into a local grief support group. I really would, because there's underlying things that we don't know. And it could be, the other thing I want to mention here as it comes to mind, so I don't lose it, is when there's a loss of your grandmother, there may have been other losses that happened in your life. And loss is cumulative, so they build on top of each other. You can't one on top of the other. And so it can become more and more difficult for those of you who have had multiple losses or lost all people all at once in like an accident of some sort. You can't, each person needs to be grieved individually. You can't put them together and go, I'm going to do this grief group and this grief journey once for all of them. First of all, each one is a special, unique relationship to you and a special person, and they each deserve to be grieved individually. And so give yourself that permission. I would say, okay, the other thing that's really, really important in loss is go and get a checkup with your doctor. Let your doctor know what you're going through, just so that you have a medical person to oversee you. It doesn't mean you medication or anything like that, but if you do, they're at least aware of what you've just experienced. And so you could postpone if you don't feel comfortable doing that. You really need to take it to prayer, and ask your higher power, ask God if he thinks you need some time off. Now, if you do that, you don't just watch TV. So you do things that would minister to your heart, that would minister, like, what did you do, Grandma, that was special? Is there something you didn't get to do with your grandma? Like maybe you didn't get to go to a tea with her. Well, you could go with a friend or something, or set up something to go experience that with somebody close with you, to you. I would, if I took time off, I would spend some time reviewing this information. You can't do it all at once. One sheet of these at a time. There's a lot in it, like in our CoDA information, a book and all. So we can only take in so much, and in grief we can only do so much. So know that you're gonna continue to not perform at 100%. You're obviously making a lot of mistakes. So I don't know what percentage your boss thinks, but if they think you're making an awful lot, why not give yourself permission to take maybe a week off, maybe not the whole 2 weeks, maybe a week, and see how that feels. But do things that minister to you, and write a letter, Grandma. You could, if you're near where there's a gravesite, you could go visit her and just test the waters of grief, and know that you're honoring her in the process.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Tanya, did you have a question?
Tanya? I just wanted to share and thank you for this workshop. My name's Tanya. I'm a recovering codependent. I also do other, and I'm volunteering for this particular today, been of service today, but I wanted to be of service to myself and attend this. I lost my mom October 17, 2020, and I'm an only child. Although I have 3 adult children, I was her only baby, and her birthday was September 10th, and then in about 8 days or so, it'll be the anniversary of her passing. And I really understood, like when you were talking about the grief. I've done a lot of grief classes, and I'm doing a lot of self-help because I've never had a close grief like this before, or close loss like this before. I've experienced grief burst, and I had anticipatory grief prior because she had an illness. But what I just wanted to share is I really liked like the charts that you had. I love what you talked about, of how you could be a friend. For me, because it's my first grief, not first, because now I'm realizing, because I've done some grief classes, that I've grieved all type of things. I've went through all type of things. I just didn't grieve them. I would just kind of, it's a loss of a job. It's a loss of a marriage, and just throw the pictures away and think that the feelings would go away. And that's just not how it works. And now I'm really dealing with something that, I was so close to my mom, and I miss her. And, I've gone back and forth, with acceptance, and, the whole stages of grief, they come and go in different aspects. Obviously, 1 minute I'm in, acceptance, and the next minute I'm saying, how could she have left me? And she didn't leave me, but it's just the whole process. And it's a phenomenal process as far as the way my mind thinks. And, I appreciate just the fact that you're saying to others, that are struggling out there, to get that individual attention, and that it's okay to cry. Sometimes the grief bursts just come out of nowhere, and I'm just like, they just come out, and I've never experienced that before. But just because I've been in 12-step fellowships for over 11 years, and we do a lot of one day at a time type of therapy. And there's a book too that I have that I just wanted to share with anyone grieving. It's called Grief One Day at a Time. And it's 365 meditations to help you heal after loss by Alan D. Wolfelt, PhD. So this is one of the tools that I use, and I do some have a couple of grief that are 12-step recovery related. I try to stay around 12-step people, but grief groups that I do and attend as well, that I actually attend and participate in, because you're right. There's no end date. There's no, you just give yourself a week, this is something that I can't control. And I need my higher power to help me, because this is way out of my scope. I mean, I've never lost a mom before, and I'll never lose a mom again. And so I just wanted to just share that. And I think I put my number in there if anyone wanted some of the resources that I may have. I'm in California, but I appreciate your presentation and your love and your compassion and empathy for yourself and us. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate your share. And yes, there's lots of resources out there. There's a great book called Good Grief, and it reminds me of Charlie Brown. And it's been around for years, and it's really small. So it's something you can deal in early onset grief. And so that's how much time is left, Carol? Are you there?
I am. Sorry, it takes a bit to move around to get back in. So it's 4:45 we stop. It's 4:37, so about 8 minutes.
Okay. So I know you've got a lot. I'm putting my email in the chat and my number. So those of you that couldn't get to ask a question or comment or follow up with me via those two methods, I'm happy to do that. So let me see. I have looked at two things. Let me share two things with you, and then we'll come back. If we have time to some more. Otherwise, you got my info to contact me, and I think it's also on the handout stuff. I want to show you a couple things to do. There is what we call the God Can, which is yep, she's got that up. And this is a tool to identify our worries. Sometimes we call them concerns, but they're really worries, and our emotional responses to them. And we write them down and we give them to God, our higher power. So prayer is talking to God. Our cares, worries, and concerns can be dealt with when we allow God to be in charge and God's will to be done, not ours. So I want you all to, okay, here I am. Make a God can. Here's my basic God can. There it is. God can. Very simple. And you take a piece of paper and you write on here a concern, put a date on it, and a concern, a prayer, whatever you're worried about. And then you fold it up and you're going to put it in the God can, because we can't, but God can. And we say a prayer, really saying to God, just talking to him, saying, God, I can't handle this, but you can. Will you answer this for me? Will you take care of this issue for me? And you put it in there. And you let it go. God answers in 3 different ways. The answer will be yes, no, or wait. So God's timing is way different than our timing. And so we have to give God the reins and let it deal with stuff in God's time. So give your burdens to God, and what will happen is you will be relieved in the process. And if those burdens keep coming back, you write another one and you put it down, and you're doing it concretely, not just, in a prayer when I prayed for that. Right? We're doing it concretely because it changes something in our brain. It makes it physical. And so it helps us to unload our rocks of guilt, our burdens, our worries. And I have learned, when I look back at my life and looked at also my grief journey, God has always been there. And God has always provided for me. I've always had what I need, not necessarily what I want, but what I need. Now, the other backup to that is you don't just have to deposit it, but we call it God did can. It's a Thanksgiving can. It's a answered prayer can. And so this is our way of reminding ourselves and being grateful and thankful to God for taking care of our needs, our concerns. And so do the same thing here. You can take, after about 3-4 months, 6 months, depending on what size your can is or whatever you want to know, you open it up and you see on the date if it's been answered or not. If not, put it back in the God can. If it's been answered, you can put it in the God did can. And then follow it up with a thank you note to him, to God. And that will help get stuff out of our brains as we're trying to go to sleep, and trying to shut our brains off so our bodies can rest and our brains can rest. This is a concrete way to help you do that. The other thing I have is it's called A Note from God, and it was introduced to me by a 90-year-old woman named Grace, who lived at an assisted living community, and she was visiting my mother-in-law at the time, who didn't get out of her room or bed very much, and she had a ministry. Grace had a ministry to go around to all of those who couldn't get out of their room or wouldn't, to encourage them every morning. And so she brought around this note, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, it's a note, and I want you to consider putting your name in after the good morning part. So I'll read it with my name, but you mentally put your own name in it. Good morning, Genevieve. This is God. I will be handling all of your problems. Today, I will not need your help, so have a good day. And I read that every morning. I wake up with that in my head, and it totally changes my day. And I actually say, instead of have a good day, I say have a great day, because why not? Why not have a great day? In grief, having a good day is great. So know that in that journey, you're going to have sad days or sad week or whatever, feel like you're in a slump, but then you're going to have some blessings. And also look for God's blessings along the way. He provides so many blessings for us along the way. You will find that nature will have a whole different perspective on nature, that it will be more impactful. The simple things of life, seeing a rainbow after after a rain, seeing the sunset, seeing a butterfly. It really sensitizes your life and opens up your heart to a greater level of compassion in this. And the other thing I must read you is called Healed to be a Healer. And it's based from scripture in the Bible from 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. And it references God as our comfort. He's the God of all comfort. So this letter to you, Close your eyes and just take it in, as if God is speaking directly to your heart. Dear child of mine, I am the God of all comfort. I will hold you in arms of compassion and sing to you my healing song of grace. I will touch wounds within you, and in my perfect season, I will lift you from this place of pain. But I want you to know that as I am healing you, I am also creating within you a healing ministry of your own. For to be healed by me is to be made a healer. You see, the comfort that I am working into your broken heart through the power of my words and the love of my people is meant to be recycled. Someday, when your heart has grown strong again, I will send someone into your life who is as broken as you are today. And the compassion I am pouring into you now will flow from you to that hurting soul. You will know how to comfort them because you will have been where they are now. You will resonate with their pain. You will reach into the depths of your own healing and love them back to me, to love them back to life for me. What a precious vessel you will be to me then, a vessel once humbled and hurt, and then healed to be a healer. This is my plan for you. Love, Jehovah Rapha. God is my healer. And with that, I will end my time of sharing, and I think that might actually wrap it up.
Okay, that's great. I'm expecting that people will be coming back very soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to send a message. I'm going to give them a minute in the breakout rooms, and then we'll close them up.
I think I just sent one. Give them a minute.
Genevieve, is it possible for you to type that beautiful good morning note on the chat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Breakout room 3B is ready to close.
Is or is not?
Yeah. 3B is done.
Okay, so actually they're going to go on in 3C for a little bit. I guess it's some spirited talk, but that won't stop us. Again, we don't have to end this meeting, but for, again, due to being respectful for other people's time, we certainly want to, stick to our agenda, have our closing. Don't need to close the meeting after that. People can stick around if they really want to. I can just leave the meeting open. It doesn't cost us anything. So with that, I will turn it over for those in the room. I'm going to send them a message that we're going to start the closing, but you can go ahead and start what you would like to do, Lisa.
Okay.
I have a question, Lisa. I've been trying to click on that link. This is Eden. And,
hi, Eden.
I've been clicking on the link and it said make a right click and it won't open.
I'm not sure which link you're talking about, Eden.
The one that you just posted. It brings you to that to the site, but then there's that part of it where it says please right click to get the documents.
Okay. I
did to have a return halfway through the URL.
Okay. I'm not sure which one you're talking about because I was just in a different workshop and posted 3 different.
Maybe Tanya was the person who posted that. And
it says volunteer, Tanya, and then I've been trying, even in the past, whenever whoever keeps on putting this.
Yeah, Eden, I just want to let you and everybody else know that what handouts and everything that the speakers and presenters presented, they will be in a package that will go out with a world announcement. So maybe not today. Maybe Tanya will repost it in the chat. But everything else, everything will come in a world announcement again.
Okay.
So
we're going to close now.
Basically, that web page we're having some issues with. The link is there. It works for some people. You don't need to right click it. You just need to click it and it'll download a file. You will not see anything happening, but it'll be downloading a file, but it's not working for some people. So we're going to clean this up. And after the event, we'll be resending the link out to everyone and make sure it all works. Might be a little bit. It won't be instant because we want to get the recordings and everything up there as well. But it will be coming.
Okay. So the email address you're going to be using is the one that we use in the Eventbrite?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Because the last conference, I never got the recording. So that's why I wanted to make sure this time around that I would be receiving it.
Yes, it will go to all the registered people from Eventbrite, plus the fellowship in general.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Lisa.
Well, I see several hands up, and I'm not sure if we need to acknowledge those as questions.
What do you,
I think they're from the grief workshop that we're still waiting to.
Oh, okay. Share. I'm going to lower all hands. If you have questions about getting information on this, you can just email events and we'll work it through that way. But just right now, be prepared that, we're still working on the links and trying to get everything set up.
Okay, and then last thing, are we recording this portion? Because it doesn't seem like it would be very recordable.
Yeah.
Recorded, I believe. And just an FYI, I also have a slide for promises if you want to do that.
Okay. First off, though, I was going to do the birthday countdown, if y'all are good with that. And Carolyn offered to help out, but we didn't get, or excuse me, Karen offered to help out. And we didn't really get to talk ahead of time, but I think maybe you can help me. We can go back and forth with the countdown part, especially when we get to a year and below. So if you're okay with that, Karen, I'm just going to move forward.
I'll do my best to follow your lead.
You're going to do fantastic. I already know that. So what we do sometimes in face-to-face meetings is we do something called a birthday or a cobriety rather than sobriety, a cobriety countdown. And we start with the oldest years and we count down to the newest years. And then we go from 1 year down to months. And so it was suggested that if everybody could turn their video off, and actually, can we stop screen sharing for a moment to do this? That would be fantastic. So if everybody could turn their video off, and that will include me, what we're going to do is as we call out the years of cobriety, what we'd like you to do is turn on your video when your number comes up, and we will be able to acknowledge you in whatever way, through reactions or maybe, visual, however we want to do it. Okay, so if everybody could turn their videos off, please. All videos off. We're almost there. I've got 3, 2, 1. Woo! Look at all the codependents. We did it. You guys rock. Okay, so if you have 31 to 35 years in CoDA as of today, please turn on your video. Please turn on your video, 31 to 35. Look at those faces. Woo! Go us. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and turn those videos off. If you are 26 to 30, please turn on your video, 26 to 30.
I'm 20.
All right. Yay, us.
Oh, for
All right,
drugs.
videos off. Sorry?
Oh, for me, it was drugs 28 years. I was code 11. Okay, duh.
We're talking about CoDA. We're all good. We'll catch you twice. Okay, all videos off, please. We're going to go to the next group. All videos off. 21 to 25. If you are 21 to 25 years in CoDA, please turn that video on so we can acknowledge you. Ooh, I see some familiar faces. All right. Okay. We're going to go videos off, please. Okay, just got a couple more to go off. Maybe? Okay. 16 to 20. If you are 16 to 20 years in CoDA. Let's see. Ooh, we got a few. All right. Do a little bit of chair dancing. All right. Congratulations. Video off, please. Okay, 11 to 15 years in CoDA, 11 to 15. Let's see who you are. Ooh, I see some faces I know. All right, yay to all of you, bravo. Okay, videos off, please. We're getting down to some single digits, 6 to 10 years. Let's see who we have 6 to 10 years. Let's light this place up. Oh, I got a whole room there. Awesome. Yeah, 6 to 10. Let's hear it for you. Okay, video's off. Karen, I'm going to have you join in just 1 second. I'm going to have you do 1 year and down.
Okay.
2 to 5 years. If you are 2 to 5 years in CoDA, let's light it up. There should be a lot because this is usually a hefty. Yep, there it goes. Look at that. All right. Yep. Wave those hands. We'll do our sparkle hands. That's what we do with the Arizona group. Sparkle hands. All right. Okay. I am going to turn it over to Karen. Karen, we're going to ask for 1 year and then we're going to count down 11 months, 10 months, 9 months. Okay.
Okay, great.
And
so
you are on.
1 year's videos on, please. Yay!
Yay!
Okay, videos off and 11 months on. And I have a feeling in the group we've got someone of each going forward.
All right.
Yay! Okay, 10 months.
Videos off for 11.
Yay!
11 off, 10 on.
All right, 10. Look at that. We got a few there.
And 10 months off and 9 months on. Wow.
Woo! Look at that room lighted up.
Awesome. It's awesome. Okay, 9 months off and 8 months on. Yay!
All right.
And 8 months off and 7 months on.
Oh, I see some chair dancing right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yes.
Fantastic.
7 months cameras off and 6 months cameras on. Yay!
Woo!
6 months off, 5 months on. Awesome. More beautiful faces.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 months off and 4 months on. Nice.
Woo!
Coming to an international. Woo! 4 months off and 3 months on. Yes.
Yay.
Right.
Yeah.
Congratulations. 3 months off and 2 months on. Yeah. Whoop, whoop.
All right.
Yay.
Okay. 2 months off and 1 month this is on.
All right. Woo!
Nice.
Those are some great smiles.
Let's go down to 2 weeks. Who's been in CoDA for 2 weeks or less?
All right.
And who's here for their very first day of CoDA? This is your first CoDA experience.
Let's open it up.
Unmute. Yeah.
Everybody on.
Keep coming back.
Right on.
It's official. We are bringing the noise.
Thank you
So
to
glad you're all of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I often say I can't do this without you. I cannot maintain my recovery and work my recovery without you. So thank you, all of you, from day 1 to day 30, forever. Thank you. We did talk about the promises. Could we have those put on screen for us, please? Maybe. Open. Oh, here, I should probably turn my video back on. Okay. I was in a hospital and institutions meeting one day, and there was a young boy about 9 years old who read these for us, and he said, "These are yummy." And I have to tell you, it was a very powerful experience to hear a 9-year-old child read these and have that reaction. So, yeah, I would like to read them for all of you, and I hope you have a similar reaction, that they're yummy, that they're an amazing thing. 12 promises. I can expect a miraculous change in my life by working the program of Codependence Anonymous. As I make an honest effort to work the 12 steps and follow the 12 traditions. 1, I know a new sense of belonging. The feeling of emptiness and loneliness will disappear. 2, I am no longer controlled by my fears. I overcome my fears and act with courage, integrity, and dignity. 3, I know a new freedom. 4, I release myself from worry. I'll try that again. 4, I release myself from worry, guilt, and regret about my past and present. I am aware enough not to repeat it. 5, I know a new love and acceptance of myself and others. I feel genuinely lovable, loving, and loved. 6, I learn to see myself as equal to others. My new and renewed relationships are all with equal partners. Karen, would you like to read the last 6?
I would love that.
Fabulous.
7, I am capable of developing and maintaining healthy and loving relationships. The need to control and manipulate others will disappear as I learn to trust those who are trustworthy. 8, I learn that it is possible to mend, to become more loving, intimate, and supportive. I have the choice of communicating with my family in a way which is safe for me and respectful of them. 9, I acknowledge that I am a unique and precious creation. 10, I no longer need to rely solely on others to provide my sense of worth. 11, I trust the guidance I receive from my higher power and come to believe in my own capabilities. And 12, the little thing is in front of it. I can't read it. I thought I had this memorized.
Gradually experience
serenity, strength, and spiritual growth in my daily life.
That's right.
Yes, so true.
Were there any final announcements from events before we do a closing prayer? Maybe? Yeah.